much all for coming. Although we're here today to mark the 50th anniversary of the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, the Palestinian story of injustice didn't start only 50 years ago. It started 100 years ago, when the British Empire decided it would give our land to European colonizers in the Zionist movement. It continued 70 years ago when the Zionist paramilitaries expelled 750,000 of my people from their homes, forcing them into exile to facilitate the creation of the State of Israel. Our factories, farms, marketplaces, and homes passed into the hands of others. At first, our story was one of exile, frozen lives, subsidizing refugees camps, and awaiting our return. Then, 50 years ago, in just 6 days, the remnant of our homeland passed also into the hands of Israel. And to exile was added a brutal regime of apartheid and military occupation that endures to this day. The Israeli state now controls our lands, strangles our economy, steals our resources, and subjects our people. It is a sad fact that Israel seeks neither peace nor an end to the occupation. Our occupiers don't want us to live, to be free, to flourish. In fact, Israel doesn't want us at all. So how does the situation look today? In Gaza, where my sister lives, 2 million of us are imprisoned in the tiny strip of land. On a good day, we have 8 hours of electricity, and we hope that 2017 will not be marked by a fourth Israeli onslaught in 8 years. With contaminated water, a decade-long illegal siege, and a devastated infrastructure, the UN doubts whether Gaza will be livable by 2020. In the West Bank, where I am originally from Hebron, we are 3 million non-citizen corralled into enclaves surrounded by illegal walls and military checkpoints. Here, the apartheid regime has denied us access to 60% of the land, taken over 80% of our water resources, and planted 800,000 illegal and often violent and racist Israeli colonists to whom it seems laws don't apply. There are millions of Palestinian refugees languishing in exile, longing to exercise our internationally mandated rights to return to our homeland. Inside the State of Israel, we are 20% of the population, subject to over 50 discriminatory laws, legally existing on the margin of society. The injustice is breathtaking. It is also calculated, designed, evaluated, and instrumental. We Palestinians are not equal, not wanted, not valued. If we were, Israel would not kill so many of us. More than 10,000 in the past 30 years, including more than 2,400 children, little lives who never had a chance to flourish. Likewise, 800,000 of us would not have been imprisoned since 1967. And every year, 700 children would not be arrested, and many we would not be criminalized for seeking to live. Yet, we do not despair. We are steadfast. The weekly marches to the illegal wall in Nabi Saleh, Bil'in, and elsewhere, the Gaza fishermen who daily force gunfire to bring home food, the mother who sits in the ruins of her home to help her children with their homework, they all prove that we Palestinians endure because despite everything, we maintain our faith in the promise of life. Palestinian culture is a culture of life, of food, dancing, music, family, and love. Our poet Rafif Ziada says it best in her memorable title, "We Teach Life." The Palestinian struggle is embedded in the principle of international law. Justice, equality, and dignity are entitlements held in common, and a denial to one is denial to all. Yet, Western government, including sadly our Irish government here, have done absolutely nothing to end Israel violation or resource our freedom. No concrete action has been taken in 5 decades. Ask yourself, if Israel has never been punished for its crimes, then why wouldn't it stop acting like a rough state? A raw state, I should say. Where government fail to act, ordinary people and civil society must step in. Today, all of you here can help us Palestinians attain our freedom in a simple way. Join the Palestinian-led global boycott, divestment, and sanction BDS movement. Palestinian-led global boycott, divestment, and sanction BDS movement that aims to compel Israel to end injustice. You can boycott Israel products and complain wherever you see them in the shops, markets, or stalls. Let retailers know it's unacceptable to help fund the Israeli war machines. You can help us. You can help us call on the Irish government to end the disgusting Irish arms trade with Israel that has seen Ireland spend more than 15 million euro in military goods from Israel over the last decade, including most recently 2 drones, that same kind of drones whose continually terrorize the Palestinian people in Gaza on the daily basis. Yeah. Just as globally, we were successful with Veolia, G4S, Orange, and of course, the Irish company CRH. Yeah. You can help us to get Hewlett-Packard to stop profiting from my people's suffering. HP, Hewlett-Packard, supplies vital technology to Israel occupation forces. So make a pledge today to boycott Hewlett-Packard products. If you are a creative and performing artist, you can sign the Irish Artist Pledge to boycott Israel and get involved in PALFest Ireland. If you are an academic, you can sign the Irish Academics Pledge to boycott Israel and join Academics for Palestine. You can help put pressure on the Irish government to impose sanctions on Israel. Sanctions like banning products from illegal Israeli settlements and ending the EU agreement that gives Israel special access to European markets. By doing so, you will send a clear message that apartheid, racial discrimination, and colonization are unacceptable in the 21st century. By doing so, You will be showing Palestinians and the world that you will not sit by while Palestinians struggle for self-determination, for equality, for justice, and for freedom. Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Our next speaker, we have a visitor, Khulud Ajarma. She's a Palestinian woman, an academic, and an activist, and she works with refugees in Aida camp in Palestine. She's here to say a few words, so please welcome Khulud.
Thank you everybody to be here. My name is Khulud Al-Ajarma. I'm a proud Palestinian. I was born and raised up in Aida refugee camp in Bethlehem, a city where Jesus was born, and a city that is known for the whole world for peace. Yet, since I was born until today, people in Palestine have been waiting for that peace. We have been struggling for that peace. Until today, Israel has been denying us all our basic human rights. Today we're gathered here to commemorate 50 years of the occupation of the West Bank, Gaza and Jerusalem. But as Fatin said, the occupation of Palestine, the colonization of Palestine, started before that. It started when my great-grandparents were expelled from their villages in 1948, and they had to live all their life in a refugee camp in Bethlehem. They weren't alone. The refugees that lived then and the refugees that were expelled in 1967 are millions today in the land of historic Palestine and in the diaspora. Today, these refugees are still waiting for the time when they'll be allowed to go back to Palestine. 50 years have passed, and the oppression of Palestinians is continuous. 50 years have passed, and land theft by Israel has continued day in and day out until today. 50 years have passed, half a century have passed, and Jerusalem is under occupation. It is easier for me, a person from Bethlehem, about 15 minutes away from Jerusalem, to come all the way to Ireland. But it's difficult for me, almost impossible, to go to Jerusalem from Bethlehem. "50 years have passed, and Israel have all these years have taken control over Palestinian water, mineral resources, land, and all the things that can make the life available for Palestinians on the land of Palestine. And during those years, even more land was grabbed. Settlements expanded illegally. Under international law, Israeli settlements are illegal. And almost every country in the world, and all EU countries included, they consider Israeli settlements illegal. Yet none of them until now took a real stand to stop importing products from Israel. None of them until now have taken a real stand to say this is illegal under international law and we should stop this. We should stand for dignity for Palestinians. And it is time to do that. Today, it is continuous. The Nakba, the catastrophe that happened in 1948, what happened in 1967, it's still happening today. Demolitions are happening every day all around Palestine. Houses of Palestinians are demolished. Lands are being grabbed to build more settlements. Palestinian prisoners, thousands of them, are in Israeli jails, only for defending their rights as Palestinians. Today, we mark 50 years of the injustice against Palestinians. And we continue to say that we Palestinians love life. There are a lot of myths about Palestine. And one of them is that we send our kids to die. But this is not true. Palestinians love life. We love education. We want to live as everybody else. But we can't even have our minimum basic human rights because we are occupied and colonized by a racist regime that puts every law that makes it impossible for Palestinians to live as human beings. And the occupation is profiting from this colonization. It is taking our resources and it's selling to all around the world the goods and that are planted and manufactured on Palestinian lands, stolen Palestinian lands. And governments all around the world are fine with that. It is time for us to take a stand and to tell our governments it is not enough to boycott on a personal level. It is important for our governments to take a stand. Colonizers all around the world, it has never happened in history that colonizers just decided to stop colonizing the people, the Aborigines that they occupied. Never it has happened. It wasn't until the people resisted and until the people fought for dignity and for justice, and it wasn't until real international solidarity that people, all the people that were once occupied and colonized, were free. And so are Palestinians. We're doing our share in Palestine. We continue to live. We continue to resist. We continue to send our kids to school. But this is not enough. We need international solidarity. We need it more than ever. And it's really important for us to feel that the people of the world, including you here, are standing for justice for Palestinians. Unless serious steps are taken internationally and serious actions are taken by governments, apartheid system in Palestine, imposed by Israel as a colonizing power, will only get worse. Under international law, states are obliged to stop working or dealing with governments that are doing things against international law. And Israel is doing many of those. The Israeli apartheid wall, it doesn't separate Palestinians from Israelis. It separates Palestinians from Palestinians. It takes out Palestinian lands. The checkpoints, they're not for security. They're for making Palestinian lives even harder. It is really important to let these truths out from Palestine. UN resolutions were neglected by Israel. All resolutions for the rights of Palestinians were neglected, and it's time to force Israel to abide to international law. BDS is one step in that way. Palestine is a place where historically Muslims, Jews and Christians and people of other faiths lived together. And Palestine will continue to be a place where everybody who fights for dignity and for human rights and everybody who's a human being will always be welcome in Palestine. It is important to support BDS. It's important to support Palestinians. And we will continue our hope for peace and justice for Palestine and for every people everywhere who live under injustice. Free Palestine. Thank you very much.
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Before our second speakers, I have few announcements. I just like to make a couple of announcements, okay? First, we would like to thank the organizers of the next Saturday's National Homeless National Homeless Demonstration, which changed the date of their protest to accommodate ours. Thank you very much. we Palestinians have been struggling for our homeland for decades, we know a thing or two about homelessness. And I encourage everybody to attend next Saturday at 1 p.m. at the Customs House to protest against the homeless problem in Ireland. So please come and attend. Our next fantastic speaker is going to be Mary Lou MacDonald, TD and Deputy Leader of Sinn Féin. Mary Lou has a long track record of supporting the Palestinian people, their struggle for their rights and self-determination. Welcome, Mary Lou.
Gurmila Mahagat agus time Intach Sosta Devensa Livsha in you. So we stand here outside the Israeli embassy, and the message from the crowd gathered here is clear, but let me reiterate it. The cause of Palestine, justice and freedom for the Palestinian people, these questions will not go away. And those that are behind the walls of this embassy in their diplomatic cocoon need to understand that the people of Ireland stand firmly, steadfastly with our Palestinian brothers and sisters. This is a country that knows something about colonisation and occupation. This is a country that knows a lot about dispossession and injustice. This is the country that must take the lead in the struggle for justice for Palestine. There are no excuses, and there is nowhere to hide for the Irish political class. And we, as people who stand in solidarity with the Palestinian cause, need to build now like never before. We need to build a vigour and a demand from the grassroots up that our political system, that our leaders, many of them so-called leaders, do the right thing. I can't remember how many times I've stood on platforms and raised the issue of the trade agreement, the Euromed agreement between the EU and Israel. I don't know how many crowds we've stood in and reminded the system that there are sanctions, there are methods to punish a state that acts with impunity in the way that Israel does. They're the facts. That arrangement recognises and has provisions to punish breaches of international law, and yet the system refuses to act. In 2014, we did achieve something, and I'm here with other colleagues from the Dáil. We did manage to get a unified voice in the Oireachtas for recognition of the Palestinian state. And that was a good achievement. But I am sorry to tell you that 3 years on, and despite appearing in the programme for government, that recognition has not yet been afforded. I want to tell you, friends, that as the first step, the first small step in our contribution to justice for Palestine, we must ensure that that recognition is afforded without any further delay. I think it was heartening to see the way in which people rallied to the cause of the Palestinian prisoners. I think it is a tribute to the memory of the people of Ireland and a stand against the very studied amnesia of the Irish political class that ordinary people understood that internment without trial and vicious regimes within the Israeli prison system had to be challenged and would be challenged. I think it's astonishing that when Gaza was being bombarded and when the last government were challenged on the floor of the Dáil for their response to it, their first impulse was to warn Irish people to be careful in the region. Think about that. Not an impulse to stand up and defend defenceless people coming under the hail of that bombardment. No, to look first to what they understood to be their responsibility. Now, I'm all for keeping our citizens safe. That is a good thing in itself. But we understand, those of us gathered here, that our responsibilities are so much bigger and so much deeper than that. We're not spectators in this. We are stakeholders in this struggle. We are stakeholders. We have a direct vested interest in achieving statehood for the Palestinian people. To conclude, I'm going to acknowledge that in addition to Sligo and other counties, there's people here from Belfast. Yeah, and Derry. And I'm sure any county that's left out, we apologise. We're very, very sorry. Newry, well, that's down on our man. I'm not getting into that. And as a Dublin woman, and we're joined by our MEP Lynn Boylan, MEP for Dublin. As a Dubliner, my heart filled with pride when I saw the colours of Palestine over City Hall. And I know that we have members of City Council here. I see Micheál McDonagh and Chris Andrews. I see John Lyons. There's probably more of you. And again, apologies for that. But I want to say to our city councillors across the board who made that happen, well done. That was a strong symbolic message. So Anisha Akorja, we have much work to do. We need to build the pressure, apply the pressure, stand fast in solidarity and free Palestine!
All of us were utterly shocked and condemned unequivocally the horrific attacks that took place recently in London and in Manchester. But I cannot stand the hypocrisy of politicians from the Tory government, from the political establishment in this country or anywhere else, from Donald Trump, who condemn in one breath the terror that was inflicted on people in Manchester and London and refuse to condemn the terror that is inflicted on a daily basis against the people of Palestine. If you are against war, if you are against terror, if you are against oppression, then you must be against it in Gaza, in London, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Mosul, in Syria, from whatever corner it comes. And if you cannot do that, if you cannot equally condemn the murder of Muslim people, of Palestinian people, of people in the Middle East, when you condemn the killings of the people in Manchester, then your words are hollow and hypocritical, and you do not oppose terror at all. And I think it is hugely important to point on this year of the anniversaries, the terrible, disastrous anniversaries for the people of Palestine, that is not rhetoric, that is the brutal, dark, unacceptable truth of what was done to the Palestinian people. That the anger that is felt in the Middle East over Palestine started 100 years ago when the British Empire, in their most cynical decision, passed the Balfour Declaration to commence the process of colonisation, to ethnically cleanse and displace the people of Palestine from their historic homelands. And let's be under no illusions about the deep cynicism of the people who made that declaration. Balfour and the other leading figures in the British system didn't give a damn about Jewish people. They were themselves anti-Semites. But they sponsored the Zionist movement as a deliberate attempt to put a colonial settler population into the Middle East in order to control, manipulate, carve up and subdue the entire Middle East, to control and steal the resources of that region. And we know that is true not just because we might say it, but Ronald Storrs, the first Governor General of Jerusalem in Mandate, Palestine, put it so well and drew the link with our own bitter experience of this as well, when he said about their plan to back the establishment of the soon-to-be established Zionist Israeli state. He said, "We wish to create a loyal little Jewish Ulster in Palestine in order to have a means to keep back the Arab people lest they revolt against our empire." He was absolutely clear about it. And that is what it is always about. And those cynical imperial manipulations continue today. And it's so important that we say it as we speak, because currently the same manipulations are dangerously escalating the tensions and conflict in the Middle East, literally as we speak. Donald Trump, extraordinarily, goes to Saudi Arabia shortly after, on the basis of opposing terror, can you believe it, imposes a blockade and a siege on Qatar. Now don't get me wrong, I have no particular time for the Qatari regime, but the cynicism of this is about a dangerous escalation of regional conflict directed at Iran and directed at those in Palestine and Egypt and elsewhere in the Middle East who oppose the puppet regimes that are backed by the West, armed by the West, and that have visited such brutal oppression, suffering and misery on the people of Iraq, on the people of Syria, on the people of Egypt, on the people of Palestine, and indeed wish to spread that poison and conflict to Iran and elsewhere. This is a very dangerous situation. So we have to speak out. We have to speak out against the Islamophobia that justifies this. We have to speak out against the vicious hypocrisy that is used to justify it. And we have to say, if they want to end terror, stop arming Israel to the teeth. Stop arming Saudi Arabia to the teeth. Stop arming the al-Sisi dictatorship that has locked up one of our citizens for over a year and is brutally crushing Egyptian people who are protesting against that regime. We have to say these things, we have to speak out, because that is where the violence is coming from. What they've done in Libya, what they've done in Syria, what they've done in Iraq, and crucially what they have done to the people of Palestine. And I just conclude by saying this. What we do makes a difference. The political establishment, the cynics and the hypocrites, the commentators and the experts have been confounded in Britain with the election result of Jeremy Corbyn. written off as a crank. Why? Because he opposed the war. Because he stands with Palestine. And he stands with the oppressed and exploited across the world. And he confounded all of them. All of them. How do they do that? Because of a people's movement behind him. You saw it on the streets, up and down the length and breadth of Britain. The people's movement confounded the establishment. And we can do the same. So I just conclude. We must do what we're doing, like football against apartheid, like Palfest, like the boycott, like John Lyons and the other councillors getting the flags flown over to city halls. All these little actions are about winning over the grassroots of Irish society to our side, and it can be done. And everybody has to do the same. The next step is we want to see those flags flying over the city halls of every other county in the country. We want those councils passing resolutions supporting the boycott of Israel. We want every town to bring teams from Gaza and Palestine to play football in their areas, to break down the nonsense of Islamophobia and build the links of solidarity between the people of this country and the people of Palestine. These little things add up to so much, and if we do that, we can win this battle. We can defeat the apartheid, repugnant state that is Israel, and finally bring justice and freedom to the heroic Palestinian people.
It is over 100 years of imperialist divide and rule in the Middle East in order to exploit the resources and the people of the Middle East. You know, it's 69 years since the horrific ethnic cleansing of the Nakba. And we know it's 50 years now of occupation. 50 years of occupation for those in the West Bank and East Jerusalem who have lives have been described of home destruction, of land theft, of violence, of facing now almost 1 million illegal settlers and facing an apartheid wall designed to break apart the Palestinian nation. 50 years of occupation and a decade of siege for people in Gaza facing a humanitarian catastrophe. For those within Israel facing discrimination, facing apartheid, facing a lack of democratic rights on an absolutely daily basis, and facing the razing of their villages, yet another over the 100 since 2010, just about a month ago. And 50 years for those Palestinian refugees spread in their millions across a region which is racked with conflict, with war, which faces the kind of regimes that we know exist. But we also know that for the right-wing Israeli elite represented here, and for their international backers, even those conditions of repression, of colonialism and of apartheid are not even enough. The Republicans, or a few of the Republicans in America, set up an Israel Victory Caucus in Washington in April. And the chair made a founding statement where he said, "We believe Israel has been victorious in the war and that this reality must be recognized." That is not very subtle code for the complete elimination of the Palestinian people. And those right-wing elements of the establishment in Israel, taking their cue, feeling confident because of Donald Trump's rhetoric, are setting about to try and implement that on the ground. An expansion of settlements and the total annexation of the West Bank, what would be an openly, nakedly apartheid regime. And you look at the power that we and they are up against, and you can understand why people feel that we can be facing an unsurmountable task. The fourth largest military in the world, backed by the largest military in the world, backed shamefully by the European Union, backed shamefully by hypocritical, corrupt regimes in the region, the likes of El-Sisi in Egypt, who was not only the second prison warder of the Palestinian people, but is also responsible for the ongoing imprisonment of Ibrahim Alawa and many others for protesting against that regime. made is very important, that they can be beaten. We know and we should have confidence that they, despite all their power, can be beaten, because despite everything, they haven't broken the spirit of struggle of the Palestinian people, and each act of oppression only increases the international solidarity. That's seen in the successful hunger strike in very difficult conditions of the Palestinian political prisoners. It's seen in the international solidarity in demonstrations like this, and it's also seen, as Richard said, in the tremendous results for Jeremy Corbyn. Because let's remember, one of the slurs against Jeremy was that he had called the right-wing Israeli political elite criminals. And he stood over it, because he's right, because the people they represent are war criminals. And telling the truth, speaking the truth to power, when you mobilise a movement, is able to defeat them no matter how great their power. And looking at what James Connolly said about how you take on empire and how you can defeat it is relevant. He said that war is a relic of barbarism. The same is true of this occupation. And he said, and he was right, that it's only possible to continue because we're governed by a ruling class with barbarous ideas. That's the case in the Middle East. That's the case for imperialism around the world. We can't escape that barbarism without overthrowing their barbaric systems of imperialism, of capitalism. And it's worth remembering, when you're talking about anniversaries, well, something else happened 100 years ago. Something else happened that was a blow against imperialism. It was the Russian Revolution. A revolution that put an end to World War I. A revolution that launched a slogan and popularized the ideas of self-determination. A revolution that briefly put working people in power. And it gives a glimpse of how we are now in a new era of radical, revolutionary political change. Of the right, yes, but also of the left. And what do the Israelis fear? The Israeli establishment fear? What do the right-wing imperialist powers across the world fear? What they fear above all is a return to a popular intifada, an uprising from below of the Palestinian masses. Because they know that such an uprising could appeal across the region, could appeal to Arab masses, could appeal to Jewish workers, can appeal to Turkish workers, can appeal to Iranian workers, and an uprising from below can reshape the face of the Middle East, can end the rule of imperialism, can take the vast wealth and resources that exist and use them for the benefit of ordinary people in implementing democratic socialist Middle East, can ensure that every people's right to self-determination can be guaranteed. Our support, our struggle, our solidarity with that is absolutely vital. So thank you very much for asking me to speak today. Thank you very much everybody who organised it. Thank you very much everybody who turned up.